So good afternoon, welcome. My name is Colleen O'Byrne. I'm with the Career and Professional Development Center, and it is my immense pleasure to have our alum, Sanjeev Dev here with us from the Rochester Legal Diversity Clerkship Program. We're thrilled to have Sanjeev with us today and to talk a little bit about the opportunity for 1Ls to work in the Rochester area during the upcoming summer. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sanjeev and give him an opportunity to talk a little bit about his background and then introduce you to the program. And then I know he's going to be taking some questions. And just for the students on today, we are recording the program so that we can save it to the archive for future viewing. So thank you, and off to you, Sanjeev.
Great, thanks Colleen for the introduction. Yeah, and just to introduce myself again, it's Sanjeev Devabhakhtani, and I graduated from Albany Law in 2010, which makes me ancient now. And I've been working as a lawyer in the Rochester legal community since I graduated. I worked at the 4th Department Appellate Division as a pool clerk for 2 years. And then I've been with Barclay Damon Law Firm. Oops, I think that's my phone, sorry. I've been with the Barclay Damon Law Firm since 2012. I've also been a part of the Monroe County Bar Association Diversity Committee for the last 5 years. And that committee sponsors this clerkship program that I'll talk about a little bit today, and certainly want to answer any questions that all of you may have. So the clerkship program started before my time, 15, maybe even 20 years ago now. And the idea is to, increase and retain the amount of diverse attorneys from populations that have been underrepresented traditionally in the legal community. And we've kept that intentionally broad on purpose. And it's been great being a part of it and seeing, just those numbers grow in Rochester, certainly at the entry level. But in my opinion, we still have a lot of work to do and room to grow as far as making sure those attorneys stay in Rochester and advance up through the legal profession, whether it's a partner at a law firm or a judge at a court, et cetera, et cetera. And the way the program works is as you can see from the materials that Colleen would have did send to all of you and that are posted on the website. There's an application, there are materials to submit with that, just like I'm sure you all see with other job applications. I'm happy to answer questions about those if anybody's already reviewed that and had questions. And then after that, there's a screening process and applicants are selected for interviews. Of course, this year, those will almost certainly, in fact, they will be done virtually at this point. So I think sometime in March after, I forget the exact date. After that, selections will be made by employers for the program in the summer, which runs, traditionally it's been right after the week, either before or right after Memorial Day for 10 to 12 weeks, depending on each employer. Some of them a little bit shorter, maybe 8 weeks. And there are usually at least about 10 employers that participate in the program. I think this year they're already in that number or close to it have committed, and we're hoping to add a couple of more for the summer so that we have, the bottom line is I know we'll have plenty of spots available, and we welcome applications from all of you. That's part of the reason I wanted to join you all and make sure that you're aware of the program and any information I can provide. So that's an overview, but I'd like to, open it up to any questions or comments people have.
Sure, yeah. My name is Willie. I just wanted to ask, I was looking over the documents. Is there some sort of list of the employers, or at least what type of law that they primarily practice in, so we have an idea of what we would possibly be chosen for?
Sure. Nice to meet you, Willie. And that's a great question. It sort of runs the gamut. We have all, in terms of a list, I'm not sure if they posted a list yet for this year until a final list of committed employers is there. But I can tell you from past years what it'll look like. It's a mix of law firms like mine, private law firms, and That's also broken down into their small firms that are only in Rochester that participate, as well as big firms like Nixon Peabody and Harder Seacrest that in the past at least have participated. Harris Beach, some of the names that you all would be familiar with, I would think. And then others maybe you wouldn't be, smaller firms, like I said, that are just in 1 or 2 cities out here in Western New York. So that's the law firm side. And even further on that, as you said, the areas that you could be working with or in would be important to you. And I can tell you that all the firms handle it differently from firm to firm. Most of us, it's especially for this 1L position, rising 2L. We know that most students are looking for a variety, a broad range of legal areas or practice areas, and don't really know what you want to do. At least I didn't when I was that age or at that level, and most don't. And so the firms will open it up for the 1L summer clerk to be working in any area they want to, any work that's available, shadow attorneys and a number of different practice areas: litigation, transactional, IP, intellectual property, corporate, et cetera, depending on what each firm does. Now, obviously, some of them don't do all of those practice areas. And so then those positions would be different and would be limited to the areas that those firms do. But most of the ones that participate in the program do all sorts of different practice areas, which creates the need and work for a 1L student to be coming in and doing, if that makes sense. And then in addition to law firms, there are other legal providers in the area that participate in the program or have participated, including there's one position designated for the public service agencies in Rochester, like Volunteer Legal Services and Legal Aid. And that's a great opportunity too. I've worked with them a lot over my time. And those are completely different and give, an opportunity to get into court quickly, even though now it might be virtual, as opposed to firm work, which you may not give that opportunity as quickly as possible. Same thing for positions like district attorney's office has participated in the past, if for students who have an interest in criminal law work. So that's another area. And those are the big categories, Willie. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything big. And what I can do is certainly I can follow up and send to Colleen to post to you all if there's a final list of employers that's selected in the so that you all have that. All right.
Hi, I have a question as well. Hi, my name is Asta Kataki. I have a question about, so when we apply, we are applying directly to the clerkship program, and the clerkship programs gives our resume to the employers and they select. So we don't have the opportunity to select prior to being asked to interview. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to know that. Thank you.
Sure. That's a good question. The way it works is just that it's a centralized process through the Bar Association that coordinates receiving and reviewing all the applications and then sending them on to the employers. And then all of the employers and the Bar Association have a say in screening the applications to narrow it down for interviews, for those selected for interviews, which is usually a big group, just so you know. Everybody should be aware of that. And then after the interviews, this is what we've done it in the past, and I believe it'll be the same for this year. That's when the students and the employers have the opportunity to sort of rank and let each other know their preference. That's the opportunity to let the group know what your preference is. For example, if you have your heart set on working at a law firm, in the summer or public service, et cetera. And then same for the employers, that's their opportunity to meet you and make that determination for them too, right? So that obviously fit is really important, which is what you're getting at. And so, that's the time that'll happen. I also wanted to know, Colin, you may have posted, I'm not sure, I don't have the full chat, I think, but there's a great YouTube video that's on the NCBA website that it's a few years old, but still to me gives a nice overview of the program and even pictures of the city, et cetera, for anybody who's never been to Rochester, if they're interested. Now, obviously this year's different, and it's going to be a virtual experience, remote work for I think all of these positions. I can't speak for every employer, but I would think that most of them will, if New York State is still under the restricted, guidelines that we are now. That's what I would expect. But I just wanted to point that out.
I just added the video, and I think that I'm glad you reminded me, because when it came out a couple of years ago, it was so helpful. And it's just, the students, if you're not from the Rochester area, one of the things that I have learned in the last few years with students who have gone to Rochester, and especially working through this program, is that they have a blast, and again, it's, pre-COVID, the opportunity to gather with other students, to be a part of the Monroe County Bar Association has done such a great job of really embracing and welcoming students and having so much fun. I mean, the students over the years. And the last thing I just wanted to toss in, I think one of our students last year, and Sanjeev, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but may have had a placement with two judges. So that was
absolutely
an opportunity as well. Last year, maybe the year before, and actually, had super exposure to the judiciary out in the Rochester area. So
that's a great. I'm glad you said that, Colin. I forgot to mention that. Yeah. So oftentimes, we will have room, and one or two judges here locally will agree to participate in the program, and so the Bar Association funds it. So that you're not paid directly by the court system, but rather by the Bar Association from a fund that's created for this position. But then the judges, you'll be in the chambers for half the summer, or even the full summer, as Colleen noted. And that's a great experience. It's similar to, I know the law school does field placements that you do in school, which I highly recommend for class credit, which is great too. And so this is similar to that. This is working right in chambers every day. Again, either probably remotely for this summer, but that's an invaluable experience. I totally agree. And I'm glad you brought it up, Colleen. Yep. I was going to note something else. Oh yeah. Most of the time, aside from the work side of it, the reason this is coordinated through the MCBA, or not the reason, but part of the benefit of the MCBA centralizing it, is that they also organize with a lot of different organizations in the community, numerous events for the clerks to get together and go to, things like laser tag and going out to dinners. And we even did a wine tour out in the Finger Lakes a couple of years. So that's great. And I'm hoping some of that will be available this summer, not all of it, but even some get-togethers, especially you could do outdoor events once the weather turns, So that's one of the best parts of the program, especially Rochester. We have a lot of festivals in the summer. Every week there's something going on. And so it's a great way for all the clerks to get together. I know they've enjoyed that part of the program too, not just working, which is, equally as important, obviously. So I just wanted to note that too.
Sanjeev, I wondered if you could just delve a little bit into maybe what the committee looks for in evaluating candidates for these positions. What are some of the sort of hit the highlights of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the most important parts of the application is the personal statement. It's a statement, as stated on there, to just note why diversity is important to you, and why you think, how you think you'd contribute to the Rochester legal community, even in the summer or beyond, if it's something that interests you. So that's really important to take that seriously. I think it's, it doesn't need to be super long. I think it's a 700-word limit. But, there have been a number of students that I think that maybe that's just a throw into the application, but it's not. That's a very important part that I know the whole group looks at. And so I would note that. In addition to that, I would say, it's important if and when you're selected for an interview to really take that just as seriously too. And if it's by video, so be it. But it's still an opportunity to make that first impression, which is really important. I think, we can all read someone's written application and see what people look like on paper. You all have done well and succeeded to get this far. You know, we know that and respect how challenging that is, especially for your group, having gone through what you have. I'm guessing when you applied to law school, you didn't think you'd be in your living rooms, bedrooms, et cetera, going to class, et cetera. And I really respect the heck out of it personally. And I know others do too. So that part's all there. So now the next step is to really distinguish yourself when you get a chance to meet, even virtually, to make that impression with the interviewers and employers. And that means being prepared and having, once you know who the employers are, as Willie pointed out, knowing who they are and having done at least a little bit of research really goes a long way to have questions prepared to ask, you know, the people that you're interviewing with. I think that's something I would keep in mind. It should go without saying, but if it doesn't, the other part is the written application should be, you know, again, show that you took the care and time and effort to prepare your submission, and not just, you know, submitted it for the sake of it, if that makes sense. So, and that will show. People will see that, and that will be another way to distinguish your application. So those are the things that come to mind.
Thank you. I absolutely appreciate it. And I can see by the nods on everybody's faces, they do too.
Sure.
I just have a quick follow-up, and I just wanted to remind students that as you apply for these opportunities, and you know, if you need help with your application materials, you each have an assigned counselor. Please work with us. And then as you are offered opportunities for interviews, you know, call on us to do mock interviews so that you're preparing and you're putting your best self forward. We want to have students succeed. So I just wanted to toss that out there and just remind students, because, you know, as we're engaging with First L's in some cases for the first time through some different programs, we just want to remind people that we're here to assist you. So thanks for the opportunity to do my pitch.
Sure. Yeah. And the other thing I would note with applications and interviews, at the same time, I think the employers recognize that school is and should be your number one priority. And so that's understood. But I just, I didn't want you to think that, you know, nobody wants anyone to take away from their studies and coursework ahead of the application, but just to make sure that you do set aside the time and take it seriously. That's all. So where's everybody, by the way, where are all of you from, if I can ask?
I live in, if you know Duanesburg, New York at all.
No, I don't know that.
So it's about maybe like half hour west of Albany if you take
Okay.
Route 20 or 95. But I grew up in Philly my whole life, and then I moved here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm used to bigger cities than where I live now.
Yeah. It gets pretty rural, I think. Yeah, west of Albany.
Yeah, I'm not sure if is Rochester is it a big city? I mean, I've Googled like the population, but
Sure.
compared to Philly, that has like millions of people, it's hard to you know.
Sure.
understand.
Much smaller than Philadelphia, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'd call it a small city. You know, I think it compares with Albany. I think I lived in Albany just for those 3 years, but I think it's a similar feel. You know, that sort of 1.5 million people, where I feel like we have. To me, I love it because we have all of the resources and things to do that you could ask for. Concert and sports venues, restaurants, nightlife, et cetera, et cetera. This is all non-pandemic applicable, but you know what I mean? All those things, shopping, et cetera. But the cost of living isn't crazy. You know, you can afford to buy a house if and when you want to pretty easily, you know, without really burdening yourself, which is great. So yeah, that's the feel, I think. And similar to Albany, I think it's not a huge population in Rochester within the city limits. It's a big suburban population, you know, like I think all the upstate New York cities are pretty similar in that way. So yeah, that's how I would describe it, a small city.
I also heard a rumor that traffic doesn't exist in Rochester because when they built the highways, they thought more people would live there, and it didn't happen. Is that true?
Yeah. Non-existent might be a stretch, but it's certainly not bad. You know, even at the worst of rush hour, it's never like you're standing still unless there's a bad accident, you know? And yeah, that's true. Kodak. So I think going up through the mid 90s, Kodak was huge here, and the population was big, and they thought it would get even bigger. And you're right, exactly right, that they designed this elaborate beltway type system, 490, to handle all of that. And now it's great for us because now we've got 4 to 5 lanes of traffic in different areas where you don't often need it, and it makes it easy to get around. It's really convenient. That's the other part of it I like is there's different things to do around the city and the different suburbs, and you can get anywhere in 15-20 minutes, so I do love that.
Hi, Sanjeev. My name is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
I grew up in Lake George, but I worked at the University of Rochester for
Great.
years, and before that at SUNY Geneseo, so not too far away. So
Sure.
I spent a lot of time out there. And Willie, if you ever want to chat, I've lived in both Rochester and Philly, so I can help you compare the two.
Nice. Oh, Lake George is beautiful too. I got to go up there a few times. Yeah, great area. And
A fun place to grow up.
oh yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I can go next. I was born in India and I was raised in Dubai. Then I came to America for college and I went to Binghamton. So from Dubai, like a big city, to like Binghamton, now I'm very used to upstate New York. And I would also like to add that I don't have a license yet. So I'm a designated passenger. So traffic is not an issue for me ever.
That's good. So this remote environment's better for you then. Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Which part of India, Asta?
I'm from Northeast India, Assam, but I lived in Delhi. So I'm a Delhiite, but also from the Northeast.
Connection there too. Yeah, my family's from southern India, Andhra Pradesh, but my uncle was working for the railways in Assam. I got to visit there and go to Kaziranga National Park.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's such a beautiful park.
It was neat. Yeah. So that's a funny coincidence. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Assam is we used to like have a tea garden and like Kaziranga was right there. So like my childhood was spent looking at the one-horned rhinoceros, and now haven't been there in a long time.
Sure. Well, no, that's great. You had some experience already with Binghamton and liked it enough to stay in upstate New York. So that's good.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time. So been in upstate New York, Binghamton, then moved to the city. So all of I've lived in Queens, Brooklyn, New Jersey. So now the New York is where I am.
Good. Yeah. And how about you, Shivani?
Oh, yeah. Hi. So I'm actually was born and raised in Rochester.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with Rochester. And then lived in the city for a bit, and then now in Albany.
Great. Well, nice to meet you too. And yeah, you got more years in Rochester on me then. Yeah. So give that part of the info. But anyway, no, I appreciate you all sharing that. I was just curious. I'm from out of state, from West Virginia originally, and ended up in Albany for law school. So I really have liked upstate New York myself. And yeah, I want to say, and that leads me to just talking about the Rochester legal community for a minute. And I can't say enough good things about it. That's the other piece of this is you should all be thinking, even though I know it's early for you and your school process, think beyond that, where as you look at these jobs and consider not just the position, but the legal community you're going to be in, whether it's a big metro area, which is if your preference, that's great, but consider what that means for you as a lawyer. For me, for example, I've been in this practice area I'm in, which is primarily these days insurance coverage, for the last few years. And so you start to really see the same attorneys on the other side in the cases I work on more and more. And so that becomes, your colleagues almost as much as the people in your firm or employer, wherever you end up. And here it's great because there are very few, if any, quote, bad apples in the legal community. It's a great place to be a lawyer because people really respect the profession and each other and treat each other cordially, and that's not always the case everywhere. Especially I've done a lot of work in the New York City area too. And it's much different, because you may work with an attorney and never see them again. And it shows the way they treat each other, in my opinion. So that's not always the most fun. And look, some cases just get contentious. There's no question, and in some matters, even for non-litigators. But I think that that's an important part of it is to keep that in mind, and you all should. I encourage you to think about that too.
Hey, Sonia, can I actually ask one more question? I have a conflicting meeting in like 20 minutes, so I wanted to ask all my questions out first. I only have one more, if that's okay.
Sure.
I noticed in the applications and the materials that, and sorry if this, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask, but in the compensation details, it says details not provided. Is that because it just varies depending on who you get, or is it not really known yet?
No, correct. It varies. And no, I think it's a fair question. I'm sure everybody would be interested in that. And it varies. I can tell you that most employers traditionally have paid the sort of average first year associate salary, just broken down for the summer, right? So I'm not sure what that is currently. Colleen, maybe I don't know if that's something that's kept, but basically, let's say it was 90,000 is the average first year starting salary for upstate New York law firms. That's taken and then just broken down into biweekly pay for the summer program. If that makes sense, which I think it used to work out to, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000 a week, or excuse me, every 2 weeks before taxes, Willie, but I'm just throwing numbers. I certainly, please don't hold me to that specific amount, but no, I think that's a perfectly fair question. And, but it'll be in that range or somewhere south of that number. And I'm just approximating, but it does differ employer to employer. So that certainly doesn't mean every employer in the program is going to do that. And certainly something, in my opinion, that's fair. It's up to each person, but if you want to bring that up at an interview, that's certainly up to you. It's a judgment call.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Sure. I can just say as an employer I've interviewed, and I would not be offended by that question. I would think that that's fair game for anybody. If you're working and you're working for pay, that's a fair question,
I think just as a follow-up to that, and I'm glad Willie brought it up, is I think it's really important. I think that students need to be informed decision makers. And I think a second part of that often I hear as a counselor is there any help with finding temporary housing in the Rochester area, and how easy or hard is it to find something where you can live for the summer? So I'll just.
Yeah, that's a great question, Colleen. I know we have looked, we meaning the Monroe County Bar, had looked into setting up our own program to help students who are looking for temporary housing. And I don't think we have a formal program in place, but there are resources certainly that I know students have used, things like Craigslist, but specific to Rochester, to find units that are being sublet for the summer. And they've had a lot of success doing that. So these could be units for other, let's say, young professionals or college students who are keeping their housing but leaving for the summer too, and that's an easy way to get housing. So I know that's worked out. But Colin, I'm going to make a note right now and follow up with the MCB to see if anything changed since last year in terms of a formal program. And I would just say that if and when the time comes, reach out to us, to me specifically about anything, frankly, after this. But later down the road, if you apply and get an offer and accept, and then need to look into housing, let us know, and we can point you to the right resources to find the right place for you. Okay. No worries. That's fine. Yeah. Thanks, Willie. All right, guys. Yeah, no, I've been talking a lot. I think it's already 12:30, but happy to answer if there's any other questions or comments folks have.
Sorry, I might have missed this because I had to step away for a second in the beginning. But like for some of the networking opportunities, like what will that look like? I guess COVID times, because I'm assuming things will pretty much be remote.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm hoping still, Shivani, you may have heard me say this, that there will be an opportunity for some in-person networking. Typically we do a lot of that. There's at the beginning of each program, there's a nice meet and greet with judges and the clerks at the beginning of the program, which is a great opportunity to network. I'm still hopeful that's going to happen. If it is virtual, so be it, but that's a great chance to hear directly from the judges, judiciary, which gives to me, which is really helpful to just get to know people, but also to hear their perspective on what you should be doing, what makes a successful lawyer, in their eyes, right? So that's one. But I think you're right that so it's things like that, at least once every week or so, if not more, through the summer. And some of those simply won't happen. I would imagine, for example, there's usually a lunch with the clerks and others that I think it'd be difficult to do that indoors. Maybe there's a way to do it outdoors. But aside from that, I'm thinking there'll be some Zoom networking events like the one I just mentioned that will happen. That's all kind of in flux, to be honest with you, though, Shivani. So I don't have a good answer, unfortunately, just because we're trying to figure it out as we go for this summer.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Sanjeev. I have another question. I apologize.
No, you do fine.
So if we get selected through the program, and if we want to come back for our 2L year, so would we have to like reapply, or once we're in the program, we're just in it?
The program is simply for this summer, Ross. That's a great question. From there, there's two ways to go about coming back, which we'd be grateful for if for students and clerks who are interested, and that's the whole goal, right? So one is directly with that same employer that you worked with. Is to work with that same employer the next summer, and so to start that communication right away if you're having a good experience and want to stay with that that entity, organization, et cetera. That's number one. And the best bet, is to have those conversations and see. I can tell you that most of the providers are interested in that. That's the goal, is to have someone come in and learn how the organization works and hopefully be the right fit, and then continue on, for the following years. The second way is these networking events that we were just talking about, is to hopefully meet people from other, parts of the legal community, whether that's judges or DA's office or other law firms, that you hit it off with, or just become knowledgeable about. And it's a resume builder to say, let's say you worked at law firm A and you can tell law firm B, yep, and I worked in Rochester, I'm familiar with it, I was here last summer. That type of experience helps a lot, right? So that's the other way to do it, but that's a new application process for the new, for the second employer, right? So I think that's what you're getting at. And yeah, that would be a separate application and program to be applying to. And just so you know, in Rochester, we don't do the same type of program for second years. This is a purely 1L summer clerkship program. And so that's the reason that it would be a totally different application specific to the employer if you decide and would like to come back.
I actually had one more question. So
Sure.
I know one of the employers is like there's like legal service providers. So one of them actually applied already to like the Empire Justice Center. And I don't know, because I know it said in previous applications that only one is like funded. It's like alternatingly funded. But so I'm not sure which one is for this year. But I was wondering, if we already submit an application like through them, should we like mention that in or like for any of the other legal service providers, should we mention that like in this application that we've already submitted like a direct application to the organization, or like how did that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I apologize, Siobhan, I forget offhand which one is up for this year. You're right. They rotate 3 of them for the as far as which program, which entity is going to be participating in the program. But yeah, what I would do in that scenario is just note that in your application materials, either in the cover letter or in your statement, that you're interested, and that means as part of the program or independently if there's a position available. That's a great approach it, and that's what I would do. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Would you be willing to share with us a little bit about what the employers would be looking for in our writing sample?
Oh, sure. The legal writing sample. So this has changed, just so you know, background of that. In past years, we've designed uh, a hypothetical, a set of facts, almost like a law school exam question, and ask students to, um, write from scratch, prepare something. So we've changed that, and the reason for that is not to. We thought that might be too burdensome, especially on first year students who have plenty of work on your plates already. So yeah, what we're looking for is, I would say it this way. It's up to you. It's intended to be broad, not looking for anything specific, Karen, but make sure it's kind of concise and shows your ability to, I don't know if they still use IRAC in law school, but that ability to identify issues, and analyze and show that, you know how to read and apply a holding from a case, I think is helpful, even if you're not going to be in a litigation position. Shows you have a good control of that, because what employers are usually looking for with 1Ls or writing. We don't expect you to be shooting to the moon, in terms of your legal writing ability, but rather that you have the basics in place on organization and legal analysis in terms of the elements that should be there. Does that make sense? And in terms of the type of document, I think it's anything. You use something from your lawyering class. If you think it's a good example, I would say that would work. You don't want something, I will say this, I wouldn't use something overwritten, that's been edited and edited. You want it to really reflect your writing ability, not something that's the employer is going to see and think, oh, this is impressive. And then down the road, it's not really up to your abilities for whatever, if that makes sense. So I would keep that in mind. I'm sure I always say I thought I was a good writer when I got to law school, and then I learned a lot. And then after that, I thought, geez, I'm the best writer ever. And then you get out into where you're still learning. I'm still learning now, 10 years out of this, so that's understood. But I would say that. And the other piece is, obviously, I say it's a fine line. You don't want it to be overwritten and edited, but obviously it should be perfect in the sense that there's no typos or grammatical errors. That type of thing is sort of taken for granted by employers that would be there, so make sure that that's in shape, proofread. I always recommend at least one other person is read it too, because it's easy to, when you read your own work, to lose sight of small errors that your eye might miss, but hopefully I know I'm rambling a little bit. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Good. These are all good questions. If you have any others, don't hesitate.
Well, I'm just going to say, I think this has been really helpful because, any chance that we can bring employers and students together, so that you can ask questions and you can have, these thoughtful exchanges is so helpful for us as counselors and for the law school. So Sanjeev, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I know that this, I'm probably speaking on behalf of the students, but anything that helps them to figure out, is this a good fit for me? And as you said, everybody's busy, but making sure that they are looking carefully at the application requirements, making sure that they're eligible, and then putting together good documents and then preparing for interviews. So, from our perspective, thank you. And I did put in the chat, I hope you don't mind, I put your email in, so that if the students have questions, that they can reach out to you separately, and that they can certainly meet with their counselor too to work through the applications.
Absolutely. No, glad to do it. Colleen, thank you for setting this up. Just so everybody else knows, I usually like to come out to Albany. I love the law school and loved my time there. So glad to help out whenever I can. And this makes it convenient for me, obviously, to do it by video. So glad to do that. And I was just going to say that I'm glad you shared my email. Yeah, don't hesitate if anyone has questions after this as you're doing your applications. Just shoot me an email. I'm glad to help if I can. So, and Colleen, same to you. If you get any questions that I can help with, just let me know. All right.
I will absolutely. And, unless someone else has another question, I think what we'll do is give you all a chance to go and grab some lunch in between your classes. And Sanjeev, thank you. I hope that you stay well and healthy. And I definitely look forward to when you can come back to campus again and see us all. And it won't be too far away. I'm sure of it.
Hope so. Great. Nice to meet you all. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sanjeev.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.